27th?
28th.
28th. Ready, Bob?
He's not coming.
5:30, Courtney.
At this time, we'll call to order the special city council meeting, Joliet City, special city council meeting for March 28th, 2016. The Honorable Mayor Bob Odenkirk presiding. Mayor?
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman McFarland. He did notify us he would not be attending this evening. Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Just so we're clear, the reason why we called this meeting, the issue with the Rialto Theater came up about 3 weeks ago. Dan Vera approached the city and was very forthcoming with the issues that were going on, the financial problems. Since that time, it's evolved a little bit, and some decisions were being made behind closed doors in the city about extending funding or what commitment the city would make. I know myself and the city manager, Mr. Gadati, have met with Mr. Vera and Mr. Silverman several times. I also know that we've spoken individually with council people. So I believed it was time for the council to discuss this publicly and to get input from everyone publicly, just so that there's full transparency on what the issues are with the Rialto and the choices that we need to make in the city council. So, Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Just kind of a synopsis. As you know, this is very fast-moving. After we talked about the financial situation and the fact that our both the Joliet Township and city finance directors went over to the Rialto to take a look at their finances, the Rialto board took action to hire an outside financial consultant to take a look at their books, put them in order. And my understanding from our finance director is that that's going to take quite some time before we really have a handle around their cash assets, what's owed to all the vendors. We do know that they have been making the payroll taxes payments since the start of March, but there are still back payroll taxes owed to the federal government. But as late as late last week, I got a call, a concern that the promoters were going to back out of some of the concerts in light of some of the activities that have been going on and things that they'd been reading in the paper. So I did provide a letter of assurance to all three of those promoters that the city would, in essence, make good on the minimum amount of money due to all of the performers of the act. It does get quite complicated, though, because each one of these promoters have different deals. There's royalties, there's minimum, and then there's more money if they sell more tickets. There are co-promotions where they actually get a portion of the alcohol sales and the merchandise sales. So each one of these promoters are independent and have unique contracts with the Rialto. So, you know, obviously my concern as city manager is at the moment you've provided me with the guidance that you don't want any more money going to the Rialto. But as soon as this Friday, the city's going to have to write a check for the Pauly Shore Comedy Show on Thursday, and on Friday is the Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy show. So I think it's real important that we're transparent in this discussion, and the question is whether or not we want to enter into any kind of intergovernmental agreement with the Rialto establishing specific conditions to the money that we provide them on an annual basis. So I'd like your thoughts and your feedback at this point so that we can continue to make the Rialto a success and make sure that these concerts that have been booked will continue uninterrupted.
Jim, if I could ask, now would be the time for citizens to be heard on the agenda item before discussion.
Certainly.
If there's anyone that would like to speak.
Name and address, please.
Mary Beth Gannon, 513 Western Avenue, board member, WCME AA. Council members, I would just ask before you give any money that you make it contingent upon making sure that the Rialto fully cooperates with the Inspector General. I truly feel in my heart that if somebody doesn't want to cooperate, maybe they shouldn't be at the Rialto. We need to be as transparent as possible for the Rialto to succeed. And that's not going to happen if we keep sweeping stuff under the rug. It's hard for me to come up here and say this, but that's what needs to happen, full cooperation, and you are the only folks who can make sure that that happens. I'd also like to suggest term limits for the board members and for the foundation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak on our citizens to be heard?
Good evening. John McQueen, 2601 Black Road, Joliet. Just a couple quick questions and answers and ideas from my side of the fence. You have a big task, really going to be very difficult. You're going to have a lot of enemies, but I would encourage the Inspector General has to follow this lead, many leads, if there are many leads, whatever. I don't know what's right or wrong as far as the truth, and he's going to have to find that out, as are you. So, but it needs to go to the end. I've listened in a couple council meetings to kind of a horror story from just a civilian's point of view, that we have to pay off a contract if there is something that has to be done with certain individuals. I don't understand why somebody that does something illegal gets to get a contract paid off for. It should be the other way around. It should be the time that he's been doing this, he should be paying us back. And all the investigations it's going to take the cost. That should be coming back. And if, for some reason, this cannot be done, this person should not, if he's still available and he's paying off a contract, he should be sitting as a consultant in the Rialto for the rest of the year and never be asked a question. He should not be getting a paid vacation, is what I'm saying. No buying out of a contract. There's only one way to cut out of this contract as far as this side of the table. He should be paying back to the city and to the Rialto. The Rialto is a jewel of Joliet, but it's going to be tarnished in this process. And it may have to stop here and there, regroup and regain its strength. But it's a big decision. You have a lot of problems to deal with. But the investigation needs to follow its courses wherever it goes. And the Inspector General, which is a new position, it should be used to take care of business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Zerkes, Joliet. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me complaining, but that's all right. First of all, I'd like to thank the council for making the move to keep those shows going, because if you didn't guarantee payment, that would be the end of the Rialto. This would pass on from one show to another, and before you know it, you couldn't get anybody down here. That is the best move the council could make. Another thing, I was kicking around, I still have this problem with those empty offices. Years ago, I think there's been studies done for the city of Joliet as to what we need to do here. And if I recall, there was something about getting residents down here in Joliet. And, I saw Chris Dragassis there take that church over on McDonough Street, made a beautiful place out of it. I don't know how many condos he has. You go into Lamont, there's old churches there. They've put in some beautiful living quarters there at these old churches. Maybe that's another thing we should be looking at. I know above the tin roof, they had some, I don't know if there was 5, 6 units there, whatever it was. But he went overboard. I went up there and saw what he did. That belonged in Burr Ridge or somewhere. I mean, he spent a ton of money up there. and people couldn't afford it. And so that's another avenue you could look at possibly. Residents down here would be good. You know, you got a train station right down the street. I mean, that's something else to think about. Anyway, I would like to thank the council again for making the decision they did.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Well, I guess to start the discussion, thank you. I agree with the statements that have been made. When the issue came up about the shows being canceled, and I know this represents from the Rialto here, so if we have facts wrong, feel free to correct us. We were looking, Jim, at either guaranteeing the promoters money, the city was going to back up the guarantee, or they were going to pull their shows out. And if they did so, the Rialto had sold about $200,000 worth of tickets that they were going to have to refund the money for, and it's money that they don't have. So I agree with the comment. If that would have happened here, that probably would have been the end of the theater, at least for a long time, if people got burned buying tickets and didn't get their money back. So it was an emergency situation. Again, the council had instructed Mr. Hawk not to forward any money, but that was a decision that was made because I think we had to act quickly. I know individual council people were consulted. Having said that, though, I do agree. I think it's a concern that the Inspector General position the Inspector General is not being allowed over at the Rialto. I know when we first met 3 weeks ago, there were basically two provisions that we communicated to the Rialto that needed to happen for the city to continue to fund or to up its funding. One was regarding Mr. Green and his employment, and the second was for the Inspector General. And to date, neither one of those have been complied with. So I do have an issue with that. I think, politically, myself and this council gets a lot of grief for what happens at the Rialto, and the reality is that as city councilmen, as a liaison or as the mayor, we have very little control over what happens there. But there are legitimate questions about what was told or was not told to this council when we debated funding the Rialto last November and December. We didn't know at the time that taxes weren't being paid. I think there's issues about what's happened with the funding and issues about whether people were being honest with the city council or not. I think we know at least one individual who wasn't, but I think there's fair questions. If we're going to continue to support this theater and make those problems our problems, I do think we need to have more oversight or at least a better picture of what the finances are and how we're going to solve these problems moving forward. It's my 2 cents. I welcome comments.
Your Honor, if I may.
Sure.
I certainly agree with the comments that were made here earlier as it relates to the transparency of the Rialto and all of those that are involved. I believe that we need that. The Rialto is the jewel, and it has so much value to the city of Joliet, and especially now that we're going through with the other economic development phase and all of that. And so I initially asked for the Inspector General because I think that is something that we need. All hands on deck, all cards up, facing up, so we can find out what's going on and how we can all work together to bring about a solution to it. And as it relates to the board of directors for the Rialto, I know that you're all fine people, all fine people. We may just have some people in the wrong places, and so we certainly want to take a look at that as well to make sure that we're all working together to achieve a goal, and that's to make the Rialto successful and also the city of Joliet. I agree with the term limits. I think if we stay too long, we get stale and we don't move. And so nothing is refreshed and recalled. And so I certainly want to take a look at that. The multiple streams of revenue that the Rialto can generate. I mean, we have a management side and we have a real estate side, And I think that no one person can handle both aspects of that. And so we really, really need to look at that and see. The city has a great investment all around, and I was so glad to hear that we jumped in and just sort of, plugged it up so nothing will go down the drain in these next few days. So I'm certainly glad to hear that. But I think that much more needs to be done. I think we all need to be held accountable in this, much more transparency, and so we can get these things done. And so, Yana, I think that's my 2 cents. I'll leave it there.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have a couple of questions, and stop me if I can't ask these. When you had your meeting with the folks from the Rialto, was it made clear to them that the council did not want to give any money as long as Mr. Green was employed?
Yeah, the first meeting that we had, there's been several. The first, again, I was the only representative council there. I felt pretty strongly that the city council was not going to forward money to buy out a contract or to pay whatever needed to be paid to Mr. Green. That was the position we took with the Rialto management at the
Okay, I
time.
just wanted to make that clear. So I do have a couple of questions then. For example, if that was made clear, why did the board table the agreement with Mr. Green as of last week? Because it seems to me like he and his attorney are holding not only the Rialto, but also the city hostage. And second of all, I'd like to know why there was no finance meeting since September. Can anyone answer those questions?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is David Silverman. I'm an attorney representing the Rialto, and Dan Vera, our chairman, is here, along with Jack Erickson, who is our interim general manager, and Cindy Tyler, who is also a member of the board. I think I can answer a couple of the questions that have been presented, and I would also like to, with your permission, address the Inspector General issue. And perhaps I can do that by first reading into the record a letter that I sent to the Inspector General last week, so that we're clear. The Rialto has not refused to allow the Inspector General in. We think there should be a financial review, and we've offered that. So if I could read this, possibly the council is not aware of it. I sent it to the Inspector General last week.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'd like my questions answered first.
Yeah, I can't answer the question on the Finance Committee, why they haven't met. Perhaps Ms. Gannon can answer that if she's on the Finance Committee, but I can't answer the other questions regarding Mr. Green's employment.
Sure.
So, okay. So there was, as you're aware, we've tried to negotiate an exit agreement with Mr. Green. And we have not been successful in negotiating that exit agreement. And the city has made it clear that they don't want us to do that you guys don't want us to do that, and that certainly you don't want any city funds used to support such an agreement. So we've tried to come up with a strategy to ask him to resign without expending any funds. We have not been successful in doing that. Before a public employee, and as you're also aware, I think, Councilman Quillman, he was placed on what we call administrative leave until our next meeting, which is a week from Wednesday.
With pay.
With pay, that's correct, yes. He's a public employee and he has a contract, so that presents certain challenges. A public employee cannot be discharged, public employee with a contract cannot be discharged, according to the United States Supreme Court, without a hearing before. So if the board is going to discharge him, they have to have a hearing, and that hearing can be conducted next Wednesday at the meeting if he doesn't leave before that time. So at that meeting, one of several things will happen. One, he may resign, or two, he may be terminated, depending upon what's established after that hearing. I can't stand here and say we're going to discharge an employee who has a constitutional right for a hearing in due process, and because that would negate all the due process. So he's going to have to understand from the board at the Rialto what, if any, shortcomings they perceive he has, and then he has an opportunity to address those. And then they can make a decision based upon
So why wasn't there not a hearing last week then?
Well,
This has been going on for a couple of weeks.
been going on for a couple of weeks, and we needed time as attorneys to investigate to the best of our ability what we have. We have to put certain documents together, and then the hearing has to be scheduled. We don't want to make mistakes here. We want to do right. And this employee, you may not like him.
I don't know the gentleman, but he has a due process right to this hearing, and we're going to make sure that he has his due process rights honored. We don't want to get into any further problems than we have right now.
So,
Quick question, is the hearing, will that be done publicly at the meeting next Wednesday?
I would assume it will be done in closed session, if there is one, if he doesn't resign between now and then.
okay, so then, if you want to read your letter to about the IG back, or to our IG,
Sure.
then I would like the finance question addressed.
Okay.
Is the finance chairman here, Mr. Thornton?
No, but Ms. Cannon's here, she's on the committee.
Okay, all
Want me
right.
to step aside?
No, go ahead with your IG first.
So the letter is dated March 23rd. It's addressed to Mr. Regis. Dear Chris, I would like to extend a thank you to Mr. Hawk and Mr. Kadati for meeting with Dan Vera and I last week. I thought it was best to summarize the discussion so that we have a basis for moving forward to strengthen the relationship between the Rialto and the city. The following is a summary of what we took from that meeting. If I have incorrectly stated or neglected to mention any material points, please let me know. Number one, common goals. The first topic was to examine whether the goals of the Rialto were in line with the goals of the city. The Rialto Board has a strong desire for the theater to remain open and become financially viable. It was agreed that the city shared that goal and a desire to work together toward that end. Number two, back tax payments. In order to alleviate the city's concern that the payment of a lump sum amount would not be used to pay back taxes, I suggested that the city pay the IRS directly. Understanding that you did not commit to pay these taxes, we agreed that a direct check to the IRS would be the appropriate method in the event that the city is amenable to making these payments. Number three, financial review. Our position is that we concur that in order to provide the confidence level for the city to continue to fund the Rialto, that a financial review of the Rialto would be necessary. As you are aware, several weeks back when Dan Vera and I met with the mayor and Mr. Hawk, they suggested that Mr. Kadati be allowed to make a preliminary financial review. Mr. Vera and I agreed and in fact encouraged that to happen. Mr. Vera worked with Rialto staff to make financial documents available, and several days later, Mr. Kadati visited the Rialto and commenced his review. We provided a proposal that the Rialto received from Mr. Don Theobald of Theobald and Associates and advised you that Mr. Vera would present that proposal to the board for consideration at its next meeting. The proposal was solicited from Mr. Theobald to assist the Rialto in strengthening its financial controls and position. Mr. Theobald was requested to make the proposal based upon his strong reputation in working with government and not-for-profit entities. Mr. Kadati assured us that he has confidence in Mr. Theobald based upon prior professional dealings. We then discussed further review by you and the City of Rialto's finances. It was our impression that we agreed that this review should be done not by you, meaning Mr. Regis, because it does not fall within your area of expertise. We further agreed that the scope of the review would be determined based upon the results of an initial review. The city planned to discuss with council paying for that review and assuming the relationship with Mr. Theobald. It should be noted that Mr. Theobald was hired by the Rialto and will begin his work on a limited basis until we decide how the review will be and how it will be paid for. It is our view that whatever reports or recommendations are made should be shared with both you and the Rialto. Further, that we would collaborate to determine the scope of the review. Number four, further review by the Inspector General. If you desire to do any investigation beyond the collaborative financial review, we will need to discuss this further to understand what information you seek. In the event that Mr. Green's employment is terminated, we will most likely become involved in litigation. As an attorney facing litigation, it is very difficult to allow our potential witnesses to be interviewed by a third party when these discussions are not protected by attorney-client privilege. It is our view that a financial review and better financial controls should provide the city with the comfort level necessary to continue to be a valued partner of the Rialto. Number five, intergovernmental agreement. We suggested that an intergovernmental agreement be entered into between the city and the Rialto. While the Rialto must remain autonomous, we believe that the city is entitled to certain assurances of cooperation and information exchange in order to secure the partnership between the entities. Our understanding is that you and Mr. Hawk would consider the points of discussion for the proposed terms of an intergovernmental agreement and would shortly provide us with a bullet point outline to continue the discussions. Number 6, overall summary. We left the meeting with a very positive attitude that the city and the Rialto could continue and strengthen their relationship. We look forward to continued cooperation. We invite you to look in. You're our partners. We invite you to come in, look at our finances, and then let's work together to get this thing straightened out. We're not trying to obstruct. There's certain things from a legal perspective we have to be careful of, but we're here to cooperate. And I hope that you understand that sense. You may not agree with everything that's going on over there, but we're doing our best to put this situation behind us and move forward to keep the Rialto in Joliet.
So to follow with my questioning then, after your letter, knowing that the taxes were due April 1st and tabling everything and then your next meeting is not till April 6th, with that interest compounding, didn't you kind of take a risk there? Did you think the city was going to bail you out?
We hoped that the city would help us, and that's why I suggested that if you do decide to help us, that you would make the check directly to the IRS. We have made payments to the IRS for the last quarters, and we're doing our best to get those together. We can't pay what we don't have, I guess. So that's why we're here, asking for your help and asking for you to work with us.
So again, I feel like now we're being held hostage, because if we don't pay it or we don't give you the allotted money, I mean, we're for one, for the record again, I love the Rialto. I've been a big advocate of the Rialto, but now I got to look at the other side here. There's been no finance meeting. There's been no oversight of the money since September. And then you have no payroll taxes being paid. And now you're coming to us for more money. Well, we have to look at the rest of the city too. This is taxpayer money. We already took a lot of flack for giving you your $600,000 allotment for the year. But now when you have all this going on, with this general manager doesn't pay the payroll taxes and can't come into agreement, and he's still on administrative leave without pay. Nobody bails taxpayers out when they can't make their mortgage or they can't make their tax money or pay their taxes. We don't do it. They find a way to do it. So my problem here is I just can't wrap my head around this, because I have to look at the rest. For me, I can't speak for the council. I'm speaking for me now. This money is taxpayer money, and not everybody in the city loves the Rialto. And this taxpayer money belongs to everyone. So I just don't understand, knowing that you had to go through this due process, why, again, it was tabled, and why there's been no oversight with the Finance Committee. Why this council was lied to in December.
Well, ma'am, I certainly didn't lie to you.
I didn't say you lied to me. There was
I wasn't even involved.
You weren't even here in December, okay?
Look, Councilman Quillen, we're not trying to hold you hostage. We're here asking for your help. We have a problem, right? That's obvious.
Yes, you have a serious problem. The problem's been there for years.
And the Rialto is, if not one of the anchors of downtown Joliet. So I know that it's important to you, and I know that it's important to the taxpayers of Joliet. We're asking to please help us. We're saying that we will bear our financial soul to you. We have no problem doing that. You're a big investor. You're our partners. We'll do that. And we'll try to work together on an intergovernmental agreement so that we have assurances going forward that the funding will be there if we meet your expectations that are set forth in that agreement. So,
So when would you agree to let the IG come in there and look at everything?
I don't know what look at everything means. If you're talking about finances, I mean, I think we've offered that, and I think that it was my understanding that the Inspector General doesn't have the requisite qualifications to do a financial review, that his background is not in that area. And I don't mean to disparage your experience. I know that you're an experienced lawyer and a good lawyer, but I don't think that we need a lawyer to go in and look at these things. I think that we need a financial professional that can go in and take a look at the Rialto finances and figure out, okay, how did we get there, and exactly where are we at? We're going to be, we're going to be lost without that. We need that help.
So let me ask you this then. if you have to settle his contract is what, to buy it out, 72,000, right? Or 75,000, you only have 72,000 in the bank?
I'm not going to comment on my opinion of what that contract says.
Okay, but where's the money coming from to buy him out? I'm not going to use taxpayer money to buy him out.
There is no agreement in place to buy him out, and we have not offered any money.
Okay. So we're still in limbo. There's still that payroll tax thing out there.
Well, right, it's a problem. That's why we're here. We need your help.
So how can I justify spending taxpayer money to bail out, and I call this a bailout, for payroll taxes when you still have this person on the payroll? And I mean, there's no money to end his contract. Who's paying for this accounting firm? There's no money for that. Who's paying you, sir?
Well, to be honest with you, we've substantially reduced our rate. I haven't billed for most of the time I've spent on this. I hope to get paid something.
But I mean, there's a
And-
lot
and-
of things
and-
piling up.
And we had discussions, you know, with your representatives that possibly they could fund it, a financial review. I don't even know how much it's going to cost or what the scope would be. I think the thought would be to get, you know, a financial professional in there and say, you know, is this a tiny mess? Is this a big mess? Or is this a huge mess? And what do we need to do in order to go forward and figure out exactly where we're at? I don't know what the scope of that would be at this point.
At this point, I don't think it takes a great financial person to figure out we have a huge mess, period.
It would appear that way.
Okay, so my next question would be about the Finance Committee.
Does anyone else have, Mayor, I'm sorry, I should.
No, that's right. If we could address the Finance Committee. The question was, why hasn't the committee met since September? Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct. The chairman of the Finance Committee is the only one who can call a meeting. I have asked the chairman to hold meetings on many occasions, and he says, yeah, it's a great idea. Let me know. It hasn't happened yet. On my own, I go in and look at the books. I go in on a regular basis. I was in 3 times last week. I do what I can, but I am not a CPA per se. I look at what seems to be off to me and what doesn't. And when things look off, I let people know. Do you have any other questions about it, or?
Yeah, was the board informed before a few weeks ago about the payroll taxes not being paid?
I was not made aware of it until our February meeting.
Yep.
Question, and it might be a question that Mr. Silverstein might, we'll wait and see, Mr. Silverstein, if you might need to come back. Silverman, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm Hoog. There, now we're even. You know, and there's no sarcasm in this statement, but when the councilwoman said, when can our IG come in and look at everything? And you said you don't understand what everything means. It means everything. It means an audit of the tickets, free tickets, tickets given out. It means an audit of the revenues generated from concessions. And as I understand it, we don't even at our Rialto have an electronic POS system for concessions.
My understanding.
Right. It means everything. It means the carpeting. It means the chandelier. It means the books. It means everything. And while he may not be an accountant, he's a pretty darn good prosecuting attorney over the years. He knows where to look.
No, I understand that.
Right. He knows where to look and find where the bodies are buried. He's got a nose for things that are out of whack. And he's got a partner who can help him called Jim Gadati, who's a fantastic numbers guy.
Sure, and Mr. Kadati's been there, and he's certainly welcome back anytime he would like to. I mean, I don't know quite what the city is asking for us to do to allow the Inspector General in. I'm not sure if you want to talk to people, if you want to look at records. As I told Mr. Hawk the other evening, you know, I would hope that there would be a financial review, and that financial review would be passed both to the Inspector General and to the Rialto and to the board, so that we can work collaboratively together. I don't know, Councilman Hugg, until somebody gets in there and looks at the books, how far you need to take it. And also, I mean, look, this is an overused phrase, but I'd rather look out the windshield than in the rearview mirror. Let's figure out where we're at, and figure out how to move forward from there. I mean, we can go backwards and look at the last 20 years if you like, but I mean, the Rialto has financially struggled for a long time, right? This is nothing new. Got to figure out a path for success. And, possibly there'll be a new general manager in there. I don't know yes or no, but at some point that's extremely possible. We know for sure that there will be by the first of the year, and it may happen sooner than that there's a new manager in. And Jack is there now as an interim. Just
Well,
we want to cooperate, and I think it's been characterized that we're not cooperating, or that's the impression that people are getting. And I just want to say that's not where we're coming from. And I hope you can tell by the tone and the tenor of the letter that I sent, in the meetings that we've had with the mayor and the inspector general and the city manager, Mr. Kadati, we're here.
Well, it's the inspector general's job by definition to investigate. We all know what investigate means. We also know that when you initiate an investigation on any item or matter, you can't predict ahead of time where it's going to lead. He needs complete and unfettered access to whatever he wants, period. Let me bring some clarification here. Why a lot of people don't want to look in their rearview mirror, sometimes you have to make sure you're not still missing your rear tires. Okay? You can't move forward. We can go with the cliches and say those that refuse to learn from their past mistakes are condemned to repeat them in the future. And this goes beyond just mismanagement or hard financial problems. We have a management personnel who violated federal and state law. It wasn't like nothing was getting paid. His salary was getting paid as he violated the laws. Quick sidebar here, Jim Hock, I had suggested last week, and you said you're going to look into it. I would really like a very clear ruling from the federal and state government about if these taxes aren't paid, who they're going after individually. Have we gotten that yet?
I asked our Inspector General to do whatever investigation he could in the few little time.
It wasn't a lot of time.
Yes, please. Here's the mic.
Thank you. Hi. I did look into that, and I'm sure you can imagine it's very difficult to get an answer out of anyone from any government body, let alone the federal government, especially about a hypothetical situation. And the best answer I could get is that personal liability is a possibility. However, in situations where it's a government body or an employer who is delinquent, the employing agency is generally the one that'll bear the liability, not the individual who may have moved on, since then.
Well, he hasn't moved on. He's still being paid, but there is some personal liability there. But again, the federal government, like oftentimes happens, made it as clear as mud.
It's possible, but not likely.
Okay, so that's something we need to pursue. There's a lot of things that weren't likely. The questions I would have is, Jim, what's an exact number on the 3 or is it 4 artists that you want the city to guarantee? What's the exact number we're going to pay?
I don't have the exact number, and we won't have the exact number till the night of the event.
Well, I mean, what's owed right now, and then of course we're going to subtract out whatever they might make from my understanding is 200,000 roughly in tickets have been sold, and that money's spent already. So we're not getting that back. We're going to make whatever we make from the seats that remain and what we make from the bar.
Right.
So, I mean, there is a number right now that's outstanding. What is that number?
Well, I don't know the numbers for sure. I think I provided you for it's 153,000 for the Foxworthy show, and they've had ticket sales of 159,000 as of a couple of weeks ago. So, so if they sell more tickets, then the performer gets more money than that minimum.
Right.
And you don't know that till the night of the event, when all the tickets have
So
been
the outstanding
sold.
amount to Mr. Foxworthy without future ticket sales, which would increase
Would
his
be
amount,
that
is
minimum
159.
153,000.
153,000. And we typically make 153,000 on liquor sales in a show? No. Right? So, okay, that's one artist. We're talking about 3 and 4 artists. Now, I'm trying to get my head around why it's so imperative that we pay for these artists. If people say because if you don't pay for them, it's going to create an environment, atmosphere, or reputation that the Rialto has financial problems. Let me give you a news flash. It's pretty much out there, right through the Chicago media. And you're probably going to see in the future at least some desirable acts are going to ask for at least a 50%, if not 100% deposit up front. That has nothing to do with whether we pay. So now the question is, what does paying for them solve outside of the folks that did buy the tickets still getting to see a show?
Well, instills a level of confidence in the purchasing public for tickets, for events for the Rialto. It also maintains a working relationship with each one of these promoters that bring in these individual events, because if they walk out the door and they're unpaid, they're never coming back. They're never going to do business with the Rialto in the future, which will limit the types of acts that potentially they can get in the future. So that's what we're trying to preserve.
Well, okay, then, Jim, on the matter of course, they would lose some confidence, but on the matter of the continuing to rebuild the confidence, that's a very temporary, momentary thing, unless you're telling us you want to guarantee every show from here on out.
The shows that are only booked till, there's only 2 in the fall at this point, and I believe there would be enough money for what council has budgeted to cover those expenses. Plus, again, there is income coming in. I don't know the balance today that the Rialto has in terms of cash to pay towards any of the shows.
But if our IG and our city finance director had been allowed to go in there freely for the last 2 weeks, we might know. I feel like my neighbor has called me and said, Larry, I got a sinkhole in my backyard. Go get me some dirt. We're going to fill this hole up. Okay, I'll help you out, Fred. I went and got a big truckload of dirt. We dumped it in. I still couldn't see the bottom. And I asked him, Fred, how deep is this hole? He said, I don't know. Get another truckload. 12 truckloads later, we still can't see the bottom. And Fred still says, I don't know. Fred, can I go climb in? No, I don't want you to climb in the hole.
Mayor, just to piggyback on his question real quick, and then I'm sorry. The artist fee fund, okay? When I was on the board of directors, the city gave another $250,000 to the Rialto board, specifically to be used for the artist fee fund, to book acts in advance, such as the issue is right now. So then when I was a liaison, there was no artist fee fund. It was still there, but it was 000. And so when I asked the board at the time, where is this money? Oh, we had to use it for operations. Well, it was never meant to be used for operations. And that was the stipulation that the city put on that back in the mid-'90s, late '90s. So that money was also spent. So again, I guess it's a thing of trust here. You know, you specify money and then it's used for something else.
Well, I have just one more. I don't know if this is a question, statement, or a combination of both. There's a lot of emotion involved here, and there's a lot of folks ringing alarms and saying this could be the closing of the Rialto. And so people are looking for a way to keep the Rialto alive, to keep it viable. Isn't that the definition of the Rialto Foundation? I mean, if the Rialto closes, whatever money, and I've heard it's somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000 in principal, whatever money they have, the foundation has in their account right now, if the Rialto closes, what are they going to spend it on? I understand there may be some restrictions. I'm not sure if they're self-imposed by the foundation board or if there were certain agreements made when the benefactors gave any number of small or large gifts. But even if it's if they truly believe in the Rialto, even if it's a loan from the foundation for the $200,000, or for $153,000 for this act, or $100,000 for the next act, isn't that the very definition of the foundation, to keep the Rialto alive? Mayor?
Your Honor, just a couple of questions. I don't know if Mr. Silverman or Mr. Erickson could answer, but whoever wants to answer them. The Rialto, are they in a calendar year, fiscal year, or a different fiscal year than the calendar year?
My understanding is that it's still a fiscal year to July 1st.
Okay, so it's July 1st to June 30th fiscal year. Have you adopted the FY16 budget as of yet?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay. No, it's not, so
Not been presented,
it's not, hasn't been presented and voted on yet?
it's not been presented by the charter manager.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is, now, you guys have hired a legal counsel, which you can't operate without, which is needed. And I think Mr. Theobald, which is going to be looking at the finances, that probably hasn't been budgeted for, correct? those funds haven't been budgeted for?
That's correct.
Okay, which, may cause some problems down the road. Going back to the taxes, do you know if Mr. Green and any of the financial people in the financial office over there are bonded?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm here since January 4th.
Right,
and
I
I'm the
understand.
interim
I
4 days
understand.
now, so
I know in most cases,
bear with me.
they should be. And that's probably one of the recommendations of one of the audits, I think, that probably would have been done. I think we can talk, and eventually we're going to have to find a permanent funding for the Rialto. I think that we can talk about, we should do this and we should do that, but I think we need to do some things immediately to stop the bleeding over there and provide some assurances to the general public. So I know that we've released some funds already, and there should be about $440,000 left in what we've allocated for the Rialto funding, correct?
That's correct.
I would like to see us pay the taxes, the payroll taxes, but not the penalties. And if that takes a check from the city and that's what they desire, so be it. But I think that Mr. Theobald, I'm sure he has experience in dealing with the IRS. And I think with the right explanations, I know there's an appeal process for the penalties, and there's a form to fill out for that. And then you could also have a hearing. And in a lot of cases, explaining the situation will relieve the authority of the fines, because I know they're substantial. But I think that in the next week or the next few days, we need to find out exactly what the Rialto needs to get through the next couple of months, whether that be artist fees, the real estate taxes, or whatever, and release that portion of the $440,000 that they need. And then I think we need to discuss throughout the summer, whether that be a committee or a panel or whoever it is, that what it's going to need ongoing into the fall and the rest of the year. Because now, you're not too far from working on the FY17 budget. And so it's going to be a big challenge. That's my comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Jack, you're fine. Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and certainly listening to all the comments, not only from the council and also from some of the representatives from the Rialto. This really isn't a problem, I don't believe. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't think this is a problem that really occurred over the last 3 months. I mean, I think this is a problem that has really been building probably for a number of years. I can remember 20 years ago being on the county board and talking about issues relating to the Rialto and their struggle financially. It's a very difficult business to be in. The theater business, it's a very difficult, like I said, very difficult business to be in. It's very competitive. And again, I can remember up to 20 years ago talking about the sustainability of the Rialto. In fact, a number of years ago, I think they even came to the county looking for some funds for a capital improvement that they were doing. And the county actually at that point in time, I want to say maybe gave them $50,000 or $75,000 towards that. So really this has been an ongoing dialogue that hasn't been hasn't just been created over the last 3 months. Certainly it's come to a head, with the general manager and all that sort of thing, and the amount of payables that are outstanding. But here we are today. And again, I think there's probably enough blame to go around for a lot of people. But I think that what we need to do is to really to look forward and look at what needs to be done initially and immediately in order to keep the Rialto kind of viable. I don't think we should forget here that the city council has invested, or the city of Joliet, the city taxpayer, has invested a substantial amount of money in downtown Joliet. We're committed to investing $10 million in a courthouse that Mr. Odekirk and I worked on with the county board. We've got the multimodal facility that is now getting jump-started, that is also going to be going. We got St. Francis has invested in our town. Joliet Junior College has invested in our city. So we also, have to take that into consideration when dealing with the Rialto. And the Rialto, you look at the Camaro study. The Camaro study clearly said that the Rialto is an integral piece of making downtown Joliet successful. So I do like, I think there's been a lot of, we've talked a lot about the negatives, but I do think there are some positive things that have occurred here over the last couple of weeks. You know, the first is, you know, I know we said that we tabled the discussion with respect to Randy Green's contract, but it sounds like listening to their attorney, Mr. Silverman, that, you know, that was unavoidable. There's a due process there that has to be followed. I think the Rialto is following that. They've put him on administrative leave, so I'm assuming, I'm going to ask this question, that he's not managing the Rialto. Mr. Erickson is now managing Rialto. He clearly stated that he is the interim manager until we find a new general manager. So that's a good thing. I mean, that shows to me that there is agreement amongst the Rialto people that we need a new direction, and that direction starts at the top. And hopefully we get, I know that Mr. Erickson is a development guy, but hopefully we get a development person or a manager who understands this business and to move the Rialto forward in a very positive way. I also think it was a very positive step forward, and we need this in hiring Mr. Theobald. He's a CPA in this town who has an excellent reputation. I think he's probably going to, his deliverables, which I think it's another good idea that we have an intergovernmental agreement, but I think his deliverables after he does his financial review will be a report. He's a financial professional. Who better than to go in there and you know, and uncover and turn over every rock with respect to you know, to some of the financial issues that the Rialto has. And I think he needs to get started on that right away. I'm sorry? He's going tomorrow. Okay. That's excellent. So I think there's definitely, it appears to me, that there is a commitment on the members of the Rialto board that are at least here today to take a step in the right direction. Mr. Green, although he is not officially out, it sounds like that it's pretty close. I think we've got a financial review that's going to be occurring here starting tomorrow. And I think Mr. Hawk taking a proactive approach with respect to guaranteeing those artist fees. I agree with Mr. Zerkes and the mayor that if we didn't do that, we probably would have been considering shutting the doors of the Rialto Square Theater, and our reputation would have certainly been damaged, and who knows where that would have led to. Certainly nothing positive. But I'm also concerned about these taxes that have to be paid. I think there was a suggested made here today that possibly the city, instead of contributing that money to the Rialto, consider paying the Internal Revenue Service direct, so it would go right to the Treasury Department, if that's what the council decides to do. We have committed an additional $440,000 to the Rialto that is due them, and I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that everybody in this room wants to see the Rialto be a success, but we do need a change in direction. We do need a new business model. And it sounds like, to me, what I'm hearing, we're taking steps to get that new business model as far as taking action against the city manager, bringing in a professional to do a financial review, and also with a new attorney as well, or an attorney as well, trying to get to the bottom of this deal. So, Mayor, those are my comments. I'm not sure what the next step is. I was actually anticipating an intergovernmental agreement here today. I don't know if that's being negotiated, but you know, I think we did, at our last meeting, we did say we wanted some things to occur before we released any money, and I think those things are occurring. They may not have been finalized yet, but I think we got a pretty good explanation by the Rialto's attorney that it's in the process, and hopefully, maybe, you know, hopefully in the next week, you know, that we'll have some, you know, there'll be a conclusion to a lot of these different items that are outstanding. But I don't know if this question is directed to the mayor or to the city manager, but I think what we need to determine is what is the next step. We don't have an intergovernmental agreement here between us, but you need direction from us to negotiate with the Rialto. Sounds like there's been some open dialogue. I appreciate the letter being read by the Rialto's attorney. So it sounds like there's been meetings going on. Mayor, should those meetings continue and say, look, before we peel off any additional dough, we need the financial review to be completed. We need, Mr. Green, obviously, he's on his way out. He's on administrative leave. What more do we need?
Well, I'll answer that with my own thoughts. And before I do, I should thank Mr. Vera, Ms. Tyler, Ms. Gannon for coming tonight. Thank you. You are all relatively new board members, so you're probably catching a little bit more flack than you deserve, but thank you.
Welcome
for your-
aboard.
Talking for you.
Yeah, you-
Yeah, say a few things.
Well, real quick, John.
Yeah.
I think the bigger question from where I'm sitting is we know our 440,000 is not gonna solve this problem. It may pay the taxes, it may back up a couple artist fees. Councilman Hug, we're not gonna get that money back. We don't know, I don't know how they're gonna pay the taxes going forward, if there's only 2 more acts booked for the rest of the year. So, devil's advocate, if the financial, Mr. Theobald comes back and says the Rialto needs $1.5 million or $2 million to be square and start over again, new management team, but this is what they need to function, is this council willing to do that? And then the second question would be, how do you justify doing that without having our own, without being confident that the right things are being done over there? If our guy, if our Inspector General doesn't have the ability to go in and look backwards at what's happened, how we got to this position, how could we write that check and just hand it over again?
Maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is they are working with the Inspector General. And part of working with the Inspector General, based on the letter that was read into the record, is that we need a financial professional, a CPA, an auditor, who is a partner with a huge accounting firm, RSM McGladdery, to go in there and do this financial review. And to me, it sounds like to me that was discussed at this meeting, and that was the appropriate thing to do, was bring in a financial professional, have him do a report. That report, I would suspect, would go back to our staff, including the Inspector General, and if there needs to be further review, so be it.
As a liaison, I was at all the Rialto meetings, and it was stated to all of us that finances were short or tough. Not to the point that we know today. There is a management position that a manager needs to handle the management financially as well as of the acts. So I think we need to take a hard look at the board, the Rialto board, who came forward immediately when the board / Dan Vera and the Joliet Township accountant had met with, as I understand from reading the materials we've received, that Mr. Green was not there, met with the accountant there, and it was identified that the payroll taxes weren't paid. As I think we see it here, he came immediately with a meeting with Mr. Hack to notify us on where this was and how this has happened. Now, I'm sorry, Jan, it's taken longer than any of us would want, but there's also quorums and due process to go. Is it my assumption Mr. Green didn't pay him? I don't know why. I don't know if that's been asked to him. I don't know if his attorney will let him say that, but he does get his day in court, so to speak, to talk on this. The city council, as I see it, is responsible for the downtown Joliet, and the Rialto is a major part of it. As John's already mentioned, we're on a positive move here. The junior college will be opening soon. The transportation center is here, going to be added to. The courthouse, we've committed, and or as I know, everybody else is committed to keep it down here. I think everybody saw, hopefully, that a new brew pub is going in the first floor of the train station. There's a couple other positive business movements that hope to be tied up here with Steve Jones has been negotiating with. We are here today to discuss today as well as the future. We need the Rialto, we need culture, we need that to bring in the new businesses that we keep talking about bringing in, the new homeowners. Every study that's been done says you need to have that. We have the opportunity to keep it. It's going to be a tough decision. Based on everything that the current Rialto board has says, they're more than willing to work with us. Do they need a new model to bring it forward? Has there been acts that didn't make money? Sure, but they didn't schedule them on purpose. They thought they were going to make money. Is there a management direction team that has better proven experience? We hope so. We think so. Where that can be found will be the challenge for the Rialto. As stated by a couple of gentlemen here, I think we do need to stop the bleeding and have whatever controls we think we need. I understand, not being an attorney, but being on both sides of that when depositions are taken, that spoken word could be a problem. So obviously, Mr. Silverman needs to protect anybody that would be involved in a deposition in the future. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of pick up what Councilman Mudron had said, with respect to the board and the new way, and I do thank the board members for coming tonight, by the way. The reason why we're discussing about this issue today is because when it was uncovered, the taxes were uncovered by the chairman and the rest of the board members, they brought it to our attention. I mean, they brought it to our attention. They brought it to the city manager's attention, is my understanding, and to the mayor, and said, we've got a problem, and that's why we're here, talking about this today. It doesn't appear to see that there was anything other than wanting to get this out into the open. But that's just as far as, what I know and what I've heard, is that once it was uncovered, that the staff, the general manager, that the taxes weren't paid, my understanding is you brought it to the city's attention. Is that a true statement? Okay, thank you.
I would say there's a number of people, several people at least, who are talking about and suggesting certain components for a new model and that the management and marketing model needs to be changed. I have a unique perspective. I spent nearly 2 decades in the entertainment industry doing exactly what you're talking about. But I'm not here to tell them how to run it. I'm here to talk about the city's involvement. Now, here's some cold, hard realities. The multimodal is going to be built whether the Rialto's having shows or not. 99.9% of the people that use the multimodal are using it to go somewhere else in the region or go to work in Chicago. It has nothing to do with the Rialto. That's a fact. The brew pub's coming down, and it's going to be a destination place, just like some of the successful pubs that we have downtown are. They're their own destination place. The Rialto is not an economic engine downtown. It does contribute on a small scale. What the Rialto has the most of is potential. Potential it has not seen in over 25 years, and certainly hasn't seen in the last 18 years. Now, is that potential worth $1 million, $2 million, $3 million? I'm not going to make that judgment. We don't have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Somebody just earlier said we have to find a permanent funding stream. And let me tell you, in entertainment, whether it's a music venue, a theatrical venue, the most reliable and the best permanent funding stream is a well-run venue that shows a profit. That's not taxes, a well-run venue that shows you a profit. We're a long way away from that. The question is, can the city afford to keep it on life support? Because that's what we're asking until we figure this out. A lot's going to hinge on the management team. Mr. Zerkes has made a good point. You and I, it's like Kismet, Mr. Zerkes. The general manager of the Rialto should not be a real estate broker. That's not his profession. The ability of finding one person who's going to be a real estate professional, a very, very well-tuned booking agent or agency, and a general operations manager, that's a diamond in the rough. There's a lot of Chicago theaters looking for people like that. So, yes, we should have an outside agency on commission managing the Rialto's rental properties. We should have a go-getter based on that commission bringing in X. I can think of a few myself, but I'm not up here to sell them. And then you should have a manager who oversees that, who is the entire umbrella. So the real question is somebody said, stop the bleeding. Paying for these 3 or 4 acts that are already booked. I'm torn on that because, it's like it's a community handshake that we gave to the folks that bought the ticket. We gave our word as a community, sort of. But it's not going to stop the bleeding. We're putting a Band-Aid on what may be and appears to be a gaping wound. So it's not going to stop the bleeding. It's going to keep those shows going. And then we're going to be back here in 2 months deciding whether we have to give more money to guarantee the next 4 acts. So I'm going to stand firm, and I want to hear from Mr. Regis, from Chris, on, everybody up here is speculating on whether or not he's been welcomed with open arms by the Rialto to come in unfettered without question, to look at whatever he feels he needs to in conjunction with Mr. Gadati, and I would need you to clarify as best you can in a second. I cannot support giving the Rialto any money as long as Mr. Green is still employed there, and as long as our people, I mean, we're doing it backwards. The great reputation of Mr. Theobald notwithstanding, I'm bothered that we're using his name. I don't want to drag him into the mud inadvertently. I'm sure he's a fantastic CPA, Councilman, but he should be coming later. We should be having our already paid staff looking at it to see just what direction we have to go. Is it in an accounting forensic manner? Is it criminal charges? Is it recoverable civil charges or damages? That's what our Inspector General, in conjunction with the expertise of our head of finance, can do. Once we've determined that, then we go to a high quality, high caliber auditor like Mr. Theobald. We're getting ahead, putting the horse before the cart on this, and unless our staff of 2 that I've named, Mayor, are allowed unfettered access to everything in that operation, no.
Mr. Regis, can you answer the question of whether you've been given access?
I have not been given access.
Thank you.
There's been some speculation over what you would be looking for if you were given access. Could you answer those questions?
The answer is quite simply anything and everything. If a thorough investigation needs to be conducted, then access needs to be given to all records, all ticket sales, personnel records, time cards, finances, concessions, all of the above. You can't open an investigation and then in good faith say, okay, go ahead and investigate, but only do this, this, and this, and talk to these people, but not these people. That's simply not going to work. And the fact of the matter is, if we're going to do a thorough job, if we're going to take a thorough look, and if we're going to assess the risk or the benefit of committing taxpayer money to that organization, then a thorough and unobstructed investigation needs to be conducted.
Mayor?
I agree. Yes.
Just to follow up on that, too. Mr. Regis, obviously, if yourself and Mr. Gadati go in there and you start your investigation, and as I stated earlier, and you seem to back up, you don't know where it will lead, for sure.
That's correct.
Okay? When you get to a point where, and it'll be hard to imagine, Mr. Gadati, because you're a very, very good accountant yourself, to where you need an outside consultancy like Mr. Theobald, that's what you would do as part of the investigation. You would turn to the city council and say, we need this expertise brought in at this point. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Okay. Sounds fair to me. Sounds like that's the right way to do it, not the backwards way.
Your Honor. Chris, the investigation you're talking, just described, how long, do you have any type of idea how long that would take you? Would it take a month? Would it take 6 weeks? Would it take?
It's hard to answer. The only baseline we have, I've been working here for about 2 months. The only baseline we have is the Evergreen Terrace report. I've been working on essentially nothing else since I've been here. So at least that long. But there are too many
sorry,
variables
yeah,
to
right.
give you
Okay.
as good of an answer as I'd like to give you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Girl, when you said that they needed to go to a new direction, do you mean like a whole new board and all new staff to go forward, a clean slate? Is that what you mean?
No, what I was referring to, well, there's going to be some new staff. My understanding, the general manager or chief executive officer, whatever Mr. Green was referred to, he's on his way out. He's been put on administrative leave, and there's negotiations going on right now with respect to his future employment. So, yeah, there definitely is employee changes going on. What I was referring to as far as the new business model is obviously the current one as far as the acts that they're bringing in, the demographics that they're targeting to bring in acts and that sort of thing needs to change. They need more shows, I think, as well. My understanding is that there's only 30 or 40 shows that go on there. And again, this is not my business. I don't know the entertainment business as well. That well, but they need a new direction as far as a business model. The number of acts they bring in, the type of acts that they bring in, who they're targeting when they bring in certain acts. I look at the facility on Cass Street. What's the new name?
The Tree.
The Tree. Mm-hmm. We've basically had problems with them because they got too many people going into their facility. I'm not suggesting that that's the demographic that works at the Rialto, but there certainly has to be a model for success for the Rialto. My understanding is the Chicago Theater does well, the Paramount does well. There's no reason in my mind that the Rialto can't do equally as well. We just need a new direction. So that's what I was referring to.
Just to correct the record, Mojo's was the institution we had a problem with.
Mojo's? Okay.
But, you know, it's a good point. We shut Mojo's down essentially because they were overbooking that facility time and time again. They had acts 4, 5, 6 nights a week.
Right.
So certainly you could sell tickets in downtown Joliet and get people to come. They proved it.
Right. And that was my point. I'm sorry.
Your Honor, if I may. Just to talk about the acts and the demographics that are there, we certainly have an opportunity to tap into more dollars in terms of diversity in the shows that are there. Just the other week, about a week or two ago, I was contacted by a Grammy Award-winning, I think the 3-time Grammy Award-winning performer that grew up right here in Joliet and cannot get booked, and nobody will return their calls at the Rialto. And so to me, that is a little concerning. And that we have these Grammy Award-winning artists who want to provide a show in front of the hometown crowd. And we cannot get them here. Nobody returns their call. They're searching all over. And so we are certainly missing some opportunities and dollars in terms of diversity and spreading that footprint that would bring that in. And so new management, of course, new management in that aspect. And you cannot merge the entertainment with the Rialto, with the real estate section of it, because that's a whole different demographics there and a whole different revenue stream. And so we're going to have to look at all of this. I feel that the IG needs to get in there and turn over every rock and start looking at things as well as the finance director, because we need to know what we're up against to move forward to make it better for everybody. And so that's where I am, John.
Mr. Mayor. Oh,
Go ahead, Terry.
yeah, I think everyone pretty much knows that I fully support the Rialto. I think it's a very intricate part of downtown Joliet. But I think, as I stated a couple of weeks ago, we need some answers, and really haven't gotten the answers that I've been looking for. Councilman Girl just spoke about the new direction. It definitely needs to go in a new direction. And as Councilman Quillman asked, does that mean new board members? It probably do at this point. Again, at least to have them looked at. And not to push, I know the city has an important part of this, but the state has board members. And I'm not trying to push anything off on the state. I know they have their problems as well. It's more of a city issue than a state issue, but I think that may need to be looked at. I don't know if the state has any say so in this matter, as well as the foundation that was brought up earlier by someone. But again, I think that before anything is done, Mr. Regis needs to have full access. If the Rialto is asking us for help, then they should be willing to give some of our requirements of the help that they're asking for. And one of those things is Mr. Regis coming in and doing what he can do in terms to help us find out where some of the issues are, where some of the problems are. And until we know that, I don't see where we can fully help the Rialto in the way that they're asking to be helped. Again, as it been said, acts, I get questions all the time. And I probably haven't been to the Rialto in years, because there's nothing that me personally and my wife want to come to. But we still love the Rialto for what it is and what it has been. But again, this is a whole city of different races of people that would love to come to see the acts that they would like to see at the Rialto. And I think it needs to be a variety of that, and it would make it much easier, and I think it would solve a lot of the problems of having more acts at the Rialto. As Councilwoman Quillman just spoke of an entertainer that wants to come, that would probably bring in a different group of people to the Rialto and to downtown Joliet to see, our downtown Joliet. So again, to cut it short, because I know it's been long, we need to look at the new direction, even if that meaning, of course, we're going to have a new general manager, different board members or more board members, change the number on the board, whatever it takes to get a more viable board to move the Rialto in a better direction or a new direction, for lack of words. Thank you,
Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe I can summarize what I've heard both from the board letter and what I've heard you say as an interim direction for me. And that is with the board's agreement that the city pay the back payroll taxes to the state and federal government that's due without interest or penalty. The Rialto will appeal that, that the city would take over the responsibility and assume Mr. Theobald's contract. So then, in essence, he's working for the city, not the Rialto.
Say that again, Jim. Say that again.
We would assume the contract that Mr. Theobald has with the Rialto Theater right now. So then, in essence, he's looking at their finances, but he's going to get payment from us, and he's working for the city.
And how much is that?
It's an hourly rate. I think it's $275 an hour. I just discussed this with with Jim Gadati, who said that that's reasonable in light of his expertise as well as his reputation in the community, and he's done work for the city and works for the pension boards right now.
Jim, does that come out of the 440, or is that an additional expense?
This would all come out of the 440.
Okay.
Including assuring payment to the existing booked performers, but don't allow any future bookings, beyond what's already booked. And then give the Inspector General full access to the Rialto Theater. Now, I can provide regular reports on the finances and these expenditures that I'd be making on behalf of the city. It would not exceed the $440,000 that you've budgeted already. But before, as the mayor brought up, where does this end? And I think until we have Mr. Theobald's report, then we can have that discussion. Because you're right, we really don't know where it would end. And also what the Inspector General would find in his investigation as well.
Mayor. Jim, and I just want to make it clear that any investigation,
I'm sorry.
Jim, any investigation, and again, I trust Mr. Theobald's got a fantastic resume, and if the council's will is to take some of the 440 to pay for him, it would be only under the supervision of Chris Regis. The entire investigation, he's got to be the point man for the city, or I'm not on board at all.
Yes, including the financial reports.
Everything,
Going to him.
whatever. The only way I know that it's going well, when Mr. Regis comes up to this podium and says, it's going well. If he says it's not going well, then it's not going well.
Certainly.
It's that simple.
I don't have a problem with that, but I think what we need to do, and just in order to reduce all this to writing, I still think we need an intergovernmental agreement with the Rialto. And I think Mr. Hawk and Mr. Gadati and Mr. Regis should work with the Rialto's attorney and their staff, and just so there's no confusion as far as what the deliverables are going to be, the timing, when we might expect those deliverables. So I think we still should get an intergovernmental agreement that needs to be worked on and agreed to, with our staff and with the Rialto, with Mr. Silverman and the Rialto board as well. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that.
One question, Your Honor. Jim, is there the contract that the Rialto has with Mr. Theobald, is that open-ended, or is it a certain amount of hours guaranteed, or how is that working?
I've forgotten. We do have a copy of it.
Okay.
Here we go. Yeah. No, I
Okay.
It was just an open-ended hourly contract, and when the Rialto board approved it, they said he would generally work under the control of Chairman Vera to control the hours. So, you know, I would suggest that if you guys decide to contract with Mr. Vera, maybe just do a separate contract rather than assume ours. That way you've got the terms and conditions in there that you're happy with.
Mayor,
Yeah.
what's the hourly rate?
It was 275.
275.
Oh, I'm sorry, just for him, I thought that was yours. Okay.
It was okay, it was Mike. I think the council, there's some consensus that, about the Inspector General. It conflicts with the position that you stated earlier. Is the Rialto going to reconsider their stand on the Inspector General?
You know what, I guess I'm going to quarrel with you on the characterization of whether the Rialto will reconsider its stand. We've never said the Inspector General cannot come in. What we've asked to do is a financial review, and we've also asked to understand what it is the Inspector General wants to look at. You know, sitting here tonight in the audience, I've gotten a better, understanding of that to some point, but I just want to be clear, Mayor, and I don't want to quarrel, but we've never said no. I've said, for a number of legal reasons, don't want this to happen, but we've never said no. I thought we were having a dialogue about it.
Well, you're not saying no, but you're saying yes with conditions, and I think the council's saying no conditions. Let him go over there and find what he finds and report back to us. I think that's what we're saying.
Yes. You know, Mayor, my example of that would be if any of us unfortunately were to be wrapped up in an IRS audit, go ahead, good luck asking the IRS to explain what they want to audit, you know, what every little detail they want to investigate. They're going to say
That's not what I'm saying. First of all, I guess we need to understand what's going to happen with this investigation. You know, if there are problems that are found, you know, Mr. Hugg, Councilman Hugg suggests criminal problems. My God, that's the first I've heard of that. And if you guys believe there are criminal problems, then we have the state's attorney investigating it. You know, the Inspector General doesn't have jurisdiction to do this.
No, he would refer it if it went down that road. And again, we're not up here spitballing, but we don't know, and the taxpayers don't know, and we are accountable to people of Joliet. There are a lot of people asking those types of questions.
Yeah, and Mr. Silverman, criminal, whether it's misdemeanor or felony, laws have already been broken on payroll taxes. So what else is going on is called full transparency, and we feel most comfortable getting that transparency through our IG, Mr. Regis. And anything he wants, he needs access to.
I think I understand your position, but Mayor, I've never taken this to the Rialto board, and they've said, no, we don't want the Inspector General to come in. That's never happened. We really haven't had that discussion because we haven't had an understanding of what it is you guys want from us.
Okay. Well,
I thought you made that clear at that meeting.
Well, I said at that point,
Yeah.
I was one council member. That was my position. Seems to be that the majority of the council feels the same. Yes, John?
Here for me. And I think, Mr. Silverman, tell me if you disagree with this at all, and I think that's probably a good reason why we still need an intergovernmental agreement.
I think, look,
You know,
I think for everybody's benefit.
For everybody's
going forward.
benefit, and I would encourage, you know, yourself and if it's Mr. Vera and our staff to sit down and come up with that intergovernmental agreement, exactly, you know, what both parties expect from one another.
And I guess for purposes of tonight, you know, I would suggest, you know, make your motions, make your, whatever it is you're going to suggest. I'm not going to change your mind on the Inspector General. I have some legal issues about it, but I'd say make your motion, you know, and then tell us what you're going to do, and then we can go to the Rialto board and have some discussions and make sure that that's acceptable with them. I don't speak for the board, and I wouldn't purport to do that. You know, it'll be a board action or a consensus of the board as to what it is that we want to do.
Our next meeting is Monday, a week. Could we have an intergovernmental agreement drawn up that the council could review? And that's, of course, before your next meeting.
Certainly.
All right.
Very good.
And then, just so we're clear, tonight, I guess as a council, we're authorizing Mr. Hawk to forward the money for the 2 acts. That's what we're doing tonight. Anything else?
Taxes, I thought, we're holding off on taxes.
If you guys could pay those taxes, look, the problem is under the IRS rules, we have problems paying other vendors until those taxes are paid. So it sort of handcuffs us as to what we can pay. And look, I'm asking you, please, if you could help us out, we would appreciate that.
It's noted for the record.
Thank you.
And for the record, if that's what you're asking, you know, the intergovernment agreement, that's really good for the future. None of this matters to me personally as a council member until we find out what kind of problems, how deep that hole in my neighbor's backyard is, and that comes through Chris. Until Chris has access and reports back to me, I would vote no on releasing any funds, personally.
Yeah, if I may. And I'm just going to take this off scale a minute. I just want to know one thing. We've got the executive director on paid leave. Is there anybody else in there that needs to be paid? What about the staff? Dan, can you answer, will they be paid, or is there money to pay the staff, or when is the next payroll, or what's up with that?
Next payroll is this week?
This
Yeah,
week?
if you could, for the microphone, please.
There are 3 payrolls in March, the 2nd, the 16th, and this week.
Okay.
So
And
the
so
taxes have been
where?
paid, both state and federal, for March 2nd's payroll and the March 16th payroll. They are current. It's the back taxes in November, December, January, 1 in January and 2 in February.
So you're going to be able to make payroll this week?
Well, we're hoping, obviously. I met with Jack today, the interim director, for our start of our weekly meetings until his interimship is done. But, and the finance manager was present. And Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, we think we may have enough for payroll this week. And then, of course, the coverage of taxes for this week's payroll. After that, obviously, you just heard our council make the request for the remaining 140 of the original 150 that was due on April 1st. Jim Huck and the mayor authorized the 10,000 to pay the state taxes due for November and December. That has been taken care of. The receipt's been, I understand, given to you, Jim, for those taxes, so to verify they were paid. Our council made the suggestion at the meeting that if you want to pay the IRS directly, that way you know with assurance it was also paid. We agreed to that at that meeting. So any combination is there. Our request tonight is for the 140 of the remaining of the 150. Otherwise, we don't know where we're going. You're going to take the open-ended agreement with Mr. Theobald down the road. If you take that out of the remaining, what would it be, 300 after the 140, we don't know where that's going to go. Right, Jack?
So where's the foundation in this? You know, the
The
foundation
foundation also has
sitting
a-
on any money?
Well, the foundation, just so you know, they have an executive board meeting on Monday afternoon, the 4th. I'll be in attendance, Jack will be in attendance. They certainly are aware of the situation. In terms of, somebody made the comment about their $800,000 or $900,000 in their account, that's up to that foundation, how it was set up. Everybody knows how foundations are set up. They all have different instruments and different constructions to them. I don't know what the penalties are if you pierce it and go in and take out principal. Right now, the authority has allowed the interest off of that foundation monies. That's what it's allowed at this point to go towards operations. Correct, Jack?
Which is nothing.
That is our understanding as of this
Is
morning.
nothing.
So we're asking the same questions you are tonight. We had that meeting this morning. So Jack's been the general manager for 4 days. I have talked to Jack every day. So we're trying to get to the same questions, answers to the same questions
I think it's
you all have.
restricted.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank
any
you,
questions
sir.
of me?
Just one, Your Honor.
Yes.
Dan, so there's a scheduled payment on April 1st for 150. We've already have 10 of it, so you're asking for the 140.
Yes, to go towards directly to the payment.
And that would be the payment of taxes, and then the guarantee for the performers would just be a guarantee, correct? I mean, it wouldn't take an actual check from us, Jim?
No, it'll take an actual check.
It'll take an
because
actual check
they've-
after the
Okay.
settlements of actual, after the shows. Jim did characterize it correctly. After the shows, I've learned a lot in the last 15, 16 months on how these things are put together. It's very strange business how this is done.
Now, will you have money,
And
will you have money to pay those after the performances, or no? Or you don't know?
We, Jack, as we talked this morning, we're not quite sure how much of what's remaining. There's been deposits put on by the co-promoters. They've got the initial risk. Jack, we have the risk at the back end, right? We learned that this morning, Mike.
So, so we may have to come up with a portion of it, correct?
Yes, when I sat down with
Most likely.
Jim
Right,
and
right.
Steve and Jim Gadotti the
Okay.
other day, we did lay it
Okay.
out to them where those commitments are.
Okay,
Otherwise, the shows were going away.
okay.
I called Jim as soon as I found out, and 2 hours later, I was in his office.
Can we vote on that tonight as far as releasing the funds, or do we have to wait till next week?
Well, he's already said when he's going to do, that's an administrative, and we've kind of
Right.
concurred.
Right.
What we need to vote on is the intergovernmental that comes.
So we're going to release the money on the 1st, correct? And you are, Jim, to pay the
Yes.
taxes and, okay.
You're going to pay the, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Wait a minute. I didn't agree to anything here.
I'm saying you're going to pay, what's up for discussion is paying the Treasury Department directly for the taxes, correct?
At this point, I'd request a brief closed session.
Is there a motion to go into a closed
So
session?
moved.
Discuss, I'm going to just cover it all, okay? Personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance, pending or threatened litigation, after which we will reconvene the meeting. Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hug?
Aye.
Councilman McFarland? Excuse me, he's absent. Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman?
Just for clarification, what does this fall under?
She just read them.
Negotiations.
Negotiation. I know she just read it, but I want to know what the Rialto was under, Mr. Girl. Okay. I'll vote aye.
Councilman Turk?
Aye.